50 years, little golden books have been treasured by young and old the world over. Today, Steve Santi, author of Collecting Little Golden Books, is going to show us his wonderful collection and tell us why you shouldn't be so quick to throw away those books with the famous gold foil binding like this. How did you ever start collecting little golden books?
I started picking them up at garage sales and flea markets.
Were they in good condition? Because I think of these as being really ripped apart often.
They were made to hold up, so they were better than some of the other children's books of the same period. And you go down a garage sale or flea market, you see a box, and you go through it, and you can still pick out some decent books. And at that time, they were only going to cost you a dime or a quarter.
I recognize a lot of these, but these in the front are very special because...
Those are the first 12 titles. Wow. And they were done, the first printing of these was done in September of 1942. They all had a second printing by October of 1942.
Because they were so popular.
They were so popular, and they weren't expected to be.
Yeah, before this, children's books were expensive, kind of $2 and $3, which was a lot of money.
And Mom and Dad would buy that book, and Mom and Dad put that book on the shelf, and maybe when Mom and Dad had time, they'd bring that book down and let the child read it.
So these were really for people, for everybody. The kids could read them and hold them, and they weren't expensive, which was the great thing.
No, they were originally, when they first started the idea, they were going to price them at 50 cents. And they said, no, that's still not quite right what I want to do. I would like to have more people have them. So what do we have to do to get them down to a quarter? So they decided if they did 50,000 of each of the titles on a run, they could sell them for a quarter.
Wow.
And they were expected not to do very well because
but they did. Amazing. And these are in incredible condition, and they have a dust cover on them.
These had dust jackets. Now, the ones you're looking at here also have Mylar protective covers on them, so that they would be more like this cover, and not the shiny ones. These are protections on here to keep them from getting damaged.
And these are particularly valuable. Just talking about strictly collecting, these are valuable because of their condition. That makes a huge difference. Because
of the condition and because of the jackets. A book that had a jacket, without a jacket, this book, let's say, would be $20. With the jacket, it could be up to $200.
Hey, but you would sell it because it means so much to you.
No, I'm not going to sell it.
Well, that's the 40s. So in the 50s, they took off the dust jackets, and they kept printing them, though, because they were so popular.
Correct. Now, in the 40s, they had the basis of their storyline was boys and girls and the morals and good boys and girls stories. You know, little things that were helping children grow up. And so they did books like Seven Sneezes and Christmas in the Country. And then Richard Scarry, some of them might remember Richard Scarry.
An illustrator.
The illustrator Richard Scarry. His first children's book was The Two Little Miners. And this was for Western Publishing for Little Golden Books.
Stunning. That's really, speaking of the illustrations, that to me is one of the most beautiful things about this collection. It's real artwork on the front of these books.
Some of the top illustrators of children's books had their starts or did a lot of their work for Little Golden Books.
Wow.
Eloise Wilkins is very, very popular because of her round cherub-looking children.
Like this girl here, which is so pretty.
That's my kitten there. And because of her books, they're the top collectible of the Little Golden Books, especially her earlier books.
Wow, amazing.
One like the twins here is about a $75 to $100 book.
Were they color pictures on the inside all the time too?
No, they were not. Originally they were done in 4-color and black and white.
Right.
And then afterwards they went to 4-color, and then they added like an orange. So you had black, white, and orange on a picture. And then they finally went to the 4-color that they're at now. They also originally, I'm going to move this book before I knock it over again.
Yeah, it's a very valuable collection. Oh, it's your collection.
Yeah. And when they first were done, the books had 42 pages. And at the 42 pages, they were that way for about 7 years. And then during the war, there was a paper shortage, so they lowered the pages down to 28. And after the war, they went back to the 42.
And everybody said, wait a minute, we liked reading 28 pages.
Well, and they thought of that because no one complained during this time of the pages being missing, so they lowered the pages to save, instead of raising that 25-cent price, they said, let's just take the pages away since no one missed them anyway.
And they were still 25 cents. These toys, we can't ignore them, but they actually went with some of the characters in the more popular books.
Correct. We have the Pokeball puppy, who's a wind-up over there, and it was one of the first talking toys. So if you turn the crank, it would start woofing for you.
Can you work it? Or?
Sure, go ahead. But as you can tell, the toys back there were not like the electronic ones today. It took more timing.
That's a heck of a lot of fun. Now, when the movies came along with movies and television, how did it affect the Golden Books?
They were finally, they knew, they were smart, Western was, and they knew that to sell, TV was going to be a good market.
Yeah,
and so they used the licensed characters, and they right, Howdy Doody, and then Lassie, Hopalong Cassidy.
Excuse me, I interrupted you. You were telling me that they decided to capitalize on the fact
on the licensed characters,
yeah.
and so they were one of the first ones to start using characters from the TV shows and putting them in there and making stories around them for the little golden books.
Wow, those are so. I look at these and it brings back so many memories. Is that who collects these? I mean, what kind of people collect little golden books besides yourself?
It's a whole spectrum.
Yeah, and people call you and say they want to get in touch with their past, I assume.
A lot of people want to get in touch with the past, and they're going to have a grandson or a granddaughter, and they'll call me up and they'll say, you know, my Johnny really enjoyed reading this book to him. Do you have it so I can share it with my grandson now?
Oh, so they really want to go back there, and I mean, for all of us looking at these today, we're all, oh, I remember that.
And
these
that's
great
the fun
little
of the
stories.
Little golden books.
Yeah. What do you have here?
Over here, after the 50s with the TV shows that were popular, they went into Hanna-Barbera by late 59, 58 was making the Flintstones, their cartoons. And so the TV cartoon shows were popular in the 60s.
This is like a cross-section of American culture.
It is exactly what it is, because it followed exactly what was going on in the culture. And the Disney books had their own series that went along parallel.
What about copywriting with these things?
Copyrights.
You know, like when you see a copyright 1942, or I mean, what is that copyright telling us?
Nothing. One thing that people are trained to believe that a copyright means something, and with little golden books or children's books of this type, they mean very little, unless you can prove it with some other piece of identification. So if you had a book on little golden books, on the last page of the 25 and 29 centers, they had the letter A. And that meant
letter B.
That meant it was a first. If it had a letter B, then it was a second edition.
Now, like this one is very tiny. You really can hardly see it.
But letter B there.
That means that it was a second edition.
Correct.
Which brings me, now that I'm back here, I kind of go, look at the back cover. This is what I remember. These little things, just studying this more than reading the book.
All the little characters.
Yes. Yeah. Is that significant?
For this period, it is significant to the point of that these were their key characters that they were using and were more popular characters.
Right. And they all have great back covers. They're in all languages too, except for
Russia, unless it's in Russia now, I'm not sure. But Russia felt that the Pokey Little Puppy was too capitalistic. And so little golden books were not allowed in Russia.
Well, little golden books, it puts me back in touch with my past, and I thank you for that. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us today. I hope you'll join us again next time. I'm Susan Powell. See you then.